All right, this is going to be kind of painful to talk about, right? And then as we start talking, they're going to bang in the background. Chris Lee, Brian Murphy, Pat Welter here. Talk about Duke's Elite Eight loss, 73-72 to UConn. They were up by 19 points, guys, in the first half, led at the halftime by 15. And this is just a part now of a pattern that's being put forth by Jon Scheyer. Teams having double-digit leads, it whittles away, and then they end up losing at the very end of the game. And now they have 3 losses this entire season. They finished the season at 35-3, a total of 5 points between all 3 losses.
And that's what I'm trying to process, guys, is like this team on one hand is so close. And I am completely confident that Jon Scheyer can and will win maybe not just one, but multiple national titles at Duke.
For sure.
But clearly there's a little ghost in the machine here, right? And to me, it's probably age. And that speaks to this team struggling to play with big leads in some big moments. I mean, obviously they were battle tested this season and have proven themselves time and time again. They were my pick to win the national title
for sure,
for all those reasons. And I thought once they got once they got Caleb Foster back and Patrick Gongba back, that they were poised to do it. And they clearly were at halftime. We were ready to book our tickets to the Final Four.
Yeah.
But yet again, they get bitten here by UConn in the Elite Eight.
This is going to be Jon Scheyer's cross to bear here until it's no longer his cross to bear. Until he wins the national championship, this is what people are going to talk about, blowing a 14-point lead against Houston with a loaded roster. In last year's Final Four, losing that game to Texas Tech earlier when they were up 17, losing the game to Carolina this year when they were up 13 and a last-second three-pointer, and then losing this game where you're up 19, you have the ball, up 1, you just need to get up 2, I guess. You just need to get fouled in the final 10 seconds. Caden Boozer tries to throw a pass inexplicably in some ways. It gets tipped, deflected. Bryson Mullins hits a shot from the S back there in March Madness, and that's how Duke's season ends. It was so sudden, so unexpected, given what we know about this team.
It really shows that there's a thin line between being the best coach in college basketball right now and having questions about your late game execution, because Jon Scheyer, quickest to the amount of wins he has, I think 121 right now in your first 4 years ever for a Division I head coach. He also has got 3 ACC championships in those 4 years, and so many of the different accomplishments. He's taken the team to the Final Four. He's gotten to the Elite Eight 3 times.
3 times in a row.
Yeah.
And so like this is not, we're not doubting him as a coach. Clearly he's a great coach, but this is the one chink in his armor. And that's the one thing he has to try to get better.
But look, this happens with all great coaches. Dean Smith was questioned until he won a national title. Mike Krzyzewski was questioned until he won a national title. You just get this. There becomes a national narrative about you until you can win the big one. We've seen it in football. This is just what happens until you get over the hump, and then all this just becomes footnotes to Jon Scheyer won 3 national titles or whatever the case may be.
And I'd say that nobody really, maybe in all of college basketball, is more reflective and self-aware than Jon Scheyer. And I think just going through the transcript of his press conference, because we were in the locker room, it didn't seem like he was necessarily in that mode right now. Understandably, moments after this incredibly gutting loss where, maybe even him in the back of the mind, we're starting to think about the Final Four. I don't know if he actually was, but it's human nature, right? Like human nature is what leads to these kind of comebacks. And to that point about reflecting, like Scheyer, they lose to Tennessee early in his first tournament as head coach. What do? They get a little tougher. They get a little bigger. They lose to Houston. What's the theme of this season after giving up that big comeback? Inflection points. And ironically, they weren't ready for the inflection.
Right.
And in a lot of ways, they weren't ready for the flow or the script of this game. Because I'm out here telling people on the streets of D.C. to bet St. John's first half. Because the script is so written where they allow teams to stay close in the first half and they go on these like signature runs in the second half. Cameron Boozer, traditionally slow in the first half. He has a huge first half in this game, which leads to that 19-point and then ultimately 15-point lead. And they weren't as comfortable with it because they're used to being the second half team. And in this one, they allowed UConn to take over.
It's one of those things where if you're Jon Scheyer, what do you reflect on for this year that maybe could have put you in a different position? And the thing that comes to mind for me immediately was you were a little thin on your front line because once the injury started, coming about with Pat Gongba, you started seeing how thin things could get and how interesting these games could start to become. So if you don't get a big guy from the portal or another freshman to come in and help out for you, you get in this situation, and now it's hard for you to be there. And so I bring that up because Jaron, what's his name? Jaron Reed. What's his first name? Terrace Reed. Excuse me.
Yeah.
I knew that sounded weird. Terrace Reed Jr. Had a monster first half. Was literally the reason why UConn was even in this game.
Him and Boozer canceled each other out essentially
This entire time, and so he was the one that was able to keep them in it, down by 15. Right? That's crazy to think about. If you had another body to throw at him, or at least another healthy body to throw at him, so that Malik Brown and Pat Gongwa wouldn't get in foul trouble based off of their lack of ability to guard him, right? And you have another body to throw at him. This is a little different, but now you kind of wonder how the roster gets tooled a little bit more for next year, especially seeing that they don't really have a for sure big man coming back. Malik Brown is out of eligibility. Pat Gongwa could possibly go to the NBA. You have a 7-footer coming in next year who is a redshirt candidate because he's so frail. He's one of those guys you want to get bigger. So what's going to happen on Duke's front line? And you kind of wonder if this is another situation like after Tennessee, if John Shire looks at things and says, okay, this is where I need to go differently.
Well, this roster is one of the best rosters in the country. I mean, Duke has built, and that's been the genius of what Shire's been able to do. He's been able to build great rosters year after year, using the portal, getting guys to stay, and of course bringing in those talented freshmen. I'm just pointing at the 3-point shooting for UConn. They made 1 of their first 18 threes and 4 of their last 5. I mean, we're not talking about it if Caravan doesn't hit a huge 3, if Mullins doesn't hit that crazy 3. And Pat, you and I talked about this, but Cameron Boozer, Caden Boozer have won everything that they've competed for years now.
Yeah.
Every AAU tournament, every state championship. And in the final minute of this game, Cameron Boozer turns the ball over that leads to the Caravan 3. Of course, he makes a basket on the other end.
Yeah.
And then Caden Boozer turns the ball over, and that leads to the Mullins 3. 2 critical turnovers. They combined for 7 turnovers in this game, but 2 critical ones down the stretch for the Boozer brothers, and you saw the pain on their faces.
If I could just break in really quick, I think a lot of that shows, I think some of the struggles from last year and the struggles from that Tennessee game, it really shows that it's hard to win when you're led by freshmen in March.
Yeah,
right.
That's exactly where I was going to go.
It's typically, senior laden teams that end up winning. The only times we can really think about it is 2015 when Duke won its last national championship with mostly freshmen, and then when Kentucky won in 2012. That's really it. And so, you can still get the freshmen, be one of the best teams. You can be the number 1 overall seed. But when it comes down to this tournament and in those crucial moments, how do those freshmen end up playing for you? And they seem to strike out.
Well, to your point about the roster construction, you said you wanted to see more bigs. I mean, bigs are really expensive.
Yes.
Right?
Yes,
So
they are.
I don't know that you can really expect to have a better front line than a 7-footer in Patrick Gongwa and a top 5 pick in Cameron Boozer. So even Duke has a limit to the resources that they have.
Sure.
So maybe something that to mix the 2 points together is, do they pull back a little bit on bringing in so many dynamic freshmen, to kind of compensate for age, right? Could you get some value other places?
I think you just keep putting yourself in these positions.
True.
You've been to 3 straight Elite Eights. You've been to 1 Final Four. You're not getting blown out in these games. You're losing heartbreakers. I mean, if I'm John Shire, I don't change anything. I double down on positional length. I keep bringing in the most talented freshmen I can. And one of these years, things are going to break my way. That Mullins shot from the first S over there is going to hit the back iron and fall to the ground. And you're in Indianapolis. So I think they're doing everything right, and these margins are so thin when you get to play a UConn or a Houston or some of these teams that are on your level.
Well, maybe it's just a tweak, right? Like it's like instead of having like 4 freshmen be primarily in the lineup, you have 2 or 3. Well, like it's not a complete revamp. Like, we can't have incredible freshmen anymore, because that marketing for Duke does a lot. Like, when you have the top lottery pick, it puts your school out there, and that's big for Duke as well.
Well, I was going to say, in some ways, maybe there is a little bit of a change, and I agree with what you're saying as far as doubling down on what you have. But there has been, I think, a little bit of a change, because if you look at it, Cameron Boozer is going to be the only freshman that's going to go this year, right? Like others could have
maybe Dame Sarr.
Maybe Dame Sarr, but others could have the possibility of either transferring or staying. I don't think that will be wise for Hemenia or for Caden Boozer. Sarr, may go. We'll have to see what ends up happening for him. And then you have Sebastian Wilkins, who redshirted, so he'll be available for next year. And then you have the classes coming in next year. The only one that really is projecting to be that high of a one and done is Cameron Williams. So in some ways, I think he has pulled back. You don't have the superstar, and this could be also the class that's coming in as well and what's available. But you don't have the superstar Cooper, Khan, Kaman, I guess type of guys coming in for these last couple of years.
I think I want to give these guys some credit too for how they handled themselves this season.
Very mature.
This was not a team that was expected necessarily to do this going in, and they just flipped that. Where I bought in pretty early. It's like, this is going to be the team that wins the title, where you have the Cooper Flag team that got them there, and then this is going to be the team that get them over the edge. And this was a likable team.
Very.
We've seen a lot of people write articles about, is Duke hateable anymore? And I just thought this team carried themselves really well. I thought they had the right edge. And ultimately, they got snake bit here in a brutal second half. And you talk about those threes, reminds me of Carolina, right? They don't lose to Carolina unless they get the Derek Dixon, the Henry Vasar, and the Seth Trimble three. So your point, it is a sample size thing. So you do have to kind of keep rolling those dice, keep rolling them out there. But just to kind of tie the bow on it, I mean, we're going in that locker room, and Caden Boozer stands in front of the media, answers the tough question as a freshman. I cost my team the game and the season, owns it, wears it, blood on his shoulder. And then Cameron Boozer comes in after having to sit at the press conference where there's nobody in there, because we're all in the locker room, we're going live, and has to then come into the locker room, wait for us, sits down with a black eye, and answers those questions about, hey, this is the last time you're going to play with your brother, last time you're going to play at the Duke, and you gave up a historic lead in the second half, and he took it. He took it like a man.
And a little bit of credit to UConn. I mean, look, they are a team that has won back-to-back national titles. Caravan, who hit the big three, is a fifth-year senior, has played on both of those national title teams. They've been battle-tested as well. They had to get, play St. John's a bunch of times this year. So when you get to this level, when you're one basket away from going to the Final Four, you're going to have to beat somebody really good that's probably as talented as you, has been through the wars, the same wars that you have. These are the two dominant programs in college basketball over the last 35 years, and we got a classic between them once again.
On that same end, Duke did enough to win. Honestly, if it weren't for that turnover, and maybe Caden just holds the ball a little bit, he goes to the line, he has a chance to kind of put this game out of reach for UConn. And Alex Caravan was mostly held in check today by Duke. And so if you look back, if you're Duke, and I think Dame Sarr actually said this to us, if it wasn't Dame, it was somebody else, we were good enough to win. We were the better team on the court, but you have a few moments of mental lapses, and then that's what can happen to you, especially with a team that has as much experience as UConn does.
Gotta give a shout out to, was it Silas Demery, right?
Yeah, from Raleigh.
Raleigh's own, hit some big shots in the second half, hit a three. I mean,
back-to-back threes.
A lot of these, this is a UConn team that wasn't necessarily like the NBA talent-laden team. Maybe Hurley has the kind of perfect mix of guys. But we were talking to Demery and to, was it Solo Ball yesterday, and both of them were like, we were both overlooked. We have a chip on your shoulder. And that's something that is hard to it's hard to manufacture that, right? When you're Duke and you are the front runner, you are the number one seed.
Yes.
You are the team.
Yes.
With the freshman. I mean, when everybody's coming for you, even the other blue bloods, where UConn can talk themselves into being the underdog. That's where that's the challenge for Jon Scheyer ultimately. When everybody's gunning for you, it's hard. You're not going to surprise anybody ever.
And Silas Demery gets credit for the deflection that leads to the final play. In the official stats, he's credited with that steal. So
overlooked by Duke initially coming out of high school, said Duke was part of his recruitment as he was in the transfer portal after he left Georgia. Ultimately decided on UConn because he said it felt more like home. And from Raleigh to Connecticut, there's his home, and he's going to the Final Four now with the Huskies.
And we aren't. And time to go back to our wives, which is needed. Honey, we miss you. Speaking for all of us.
Yes.
Our kids as well. We're coming back to Raleigh.